Hi and welcome. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly program on WFNP The Edge, where we discuss regional New Paltz history and upcoming programs and events. I'm Caitlin Gallucci, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Historic Huguenot Street, which is a nonprofit 10-acre National Historic Landmark District dedicated to preserving historic buildings, artifacts, and manuscripts, and promoting the stories of Huguenot Street families, descendants, and inhabitants from the 16th century to today. As we mentioned on last week's show, this summer we hosted our second overnight visit with the Slave Dwelling Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to identifying and assisting property owners, government agencies, and organizations in preserving our country's surviving slave dwellings. The organization's goal is to bring historians, students, faculty, writers, legislators, organizations, corporations, artists, and the general public together to educate, collaborate, and organize resources to save these important artifacts of American history. Historic Huguenot Street is one of only 2 New York historic sites that have hosted overnight visits from the Slave Dwelling Project, and it is one of only 2 sites nationally to have hosted a second overnight, the only other site to have done so being Thomas Jefferson's Monticello in Charlottesville, Virginia. For this year's overnight, Terry James of the Slave Dwelling Project shared the cellar space with 6 writers from TMI Project, an organization that seeks to raise awareness and inspire people to take action around issues of inequality and injustice through authentic storytelling. They focus on stories from marginalized populations, humanizing issues that are often overlooked in historic narratives. Through a series of writing workshops, participants were offered specific guidance for creating compelling stories, brainstorming sessions, feedback during monologue development, and editing of their final works. This Saturday, those writers will perform their stories and monologues at a program called Reclaiming Our Time at the Reformed Church at 92 Huguenot Street. More details and registration are available at huguenotstreet.org/TMI. This project presents an important opportunity for the community to engage in a critical dialogue. Tonight, I'm joined by Mica Blumenthal, one of the TMI Project writers who will be performing this Saturday. Not only is he a writer, Mica is also co-founder of 6 Designs, creative director for Kingston's O Positive Festival, board president of Kingston's Center for Creative Education, board president of Wild Earth, board member of Radio Kingston, artist, and yoga teacher. Hi, Mica.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell me a little bit about TMI Project and how you became involved?
I mean, a lot of, you covered it really. A lot of it is TMI. Okay. It's really about, well, it stands for Too Much Information, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about helping people to get out those stories that we often keep private and keep to ourselves, but are sometimes those are things that really connect us to each other the most. Sure. Sometimes we ourselves have a need that we don't even know of to release it, to get it out, and in doing so the audience is able to hear and connect. And I became a part of TMI really with the Black Stories Matter that I was a part of a few months back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Kind of coincidentally, I don't know if you know this, but so one of our staff members here, Renzo, actually was at the Black Stories Matter performance back in March, and he's the one who came back to Huguenot Street and was like, we need to talk to TMI Project.
Oh, wow.
That's how this happened, yeah.
Nice. I didn't know that.
That's cool. Yeah, if you haven't met him yet, I'll make sure you meet him.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I'm sure you probably did, because he probably stayed overnight as well. Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit more about what was it like participating in the Black Stories Matter performance? Was that your first kind of performance with TMI?
Yeah, it was my first workshop with TMI, first performance with them. It was amazing even building up to the performance, even just the coming together for all of us who were part of it was really special. There was just a bonding that really happened there, a warmth, a comfort. I mean, part of it is, look, up here in this area, the population of African Americans is pretty low. It's a low percentage, and there aren't a lot of spaces where we gather. And so for us to gather and to begin telling our stories and realizing that all of our stories the details are all different, but there's a weaving, there's a similarity, there was a sense of family that I think kind of developed in the process. And so then when we went to the stage, like, it really just felt like that carried over. Like, we were all just so proud of each other every time one of us was on stage. And even though we had all heard the stories before, because we've been in workshops together, I also just felt like I was hearing them new for the first time, being up there with everybody, and even getting to tell my own.
Right. So you guys also work together throughout, like, the workshops and stuff. So, you know, that makes sense. I mean, you know, you're not a bunch of random people coming together for a performance. You've been working together for a while already.
Yeah, you know, and when you work together, you know, obviously it's really intimate, right? When you share your story and your life, so that intimacy kind of builds, and like that sense of family, I think, builds, and it's amazing. Like, you know, it's hard to overstate how amazing the space that TMI holds is. Like, you know, you come together and you know you're gonna go deep, you know you're gonna tell a story, but I think you're always surprised by how much you reveal and how easily you reveal that to each other. And then you're that much more surprised when you realize that you're gonna do it on stage in front of a few hundred people.
Right.
But you do, you know, and I remember people asking me, like, oh, well, you know, did TMI, you know, really work with you in terms of helping everybody be prepared to, like, be on stage? And there wasn't I didn't directly know in a way, but at the same time, like, the space that they had held for us throughout the workshop was so clearly still held in that moment. Like, I don't think any of us were the type of people who, you know, are regularly speak in front of hundreds of people.
Right,
That's not the group that we were. And yet I think we felt held enough to, like, all right, yeah, I get, you know, I'm a little nervous, but let me get up and do this. And it ended up being an amazing evening, and people still come up to me talking about how inspired they were, how much they learned or were touched, just how much they realized that they didn't know before. It's still having an effect on people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, it influenced us here too. Yeah. So obviously, I'm guessing part of that experience influenced why you would, you know, come back to participate again. But, you know, what made you participate in the overnight on Huguenot Street with the Slave Dwelling Project?
I mean, honestly, it just felt like an extremely rare and important opportunity.
Right.
You know, especially being descendants of, you know, slave dwellers. You know, what really the closest we get to that is, you know, there's stories, there's movies, there's books. You know, maybe if you go to a museum, there's relics, you know, behind a glass case or something. But this was the opportunity to be in this space. That felt important to me, and for myself, I'm also half Jewish, and some years ago, I don't know, close to 20 years ago maybe, I went to Auschwitz. You know, and that felt important to me to be there in that space that certainly touched upon my ancestry, and this felt like the opportunity to do the same with this other half of my lineage.
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. This is WFNP, The Edge. Hi, and welcome back. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly program on WFNP, The Edge. I'm Caitlin Gallucci, and I'm joined by Mica Blumenthal, one of the TMI Project writers who will be performing this Saturday at Reclaiming Our Time on Huguenot Street. The history of slavery in the United States is not only critically important to acknowledge, but it's also necessary to recognize and reflect on the long-term effects that the institution of slavery has had and continues to have on our country, culturally and structurally. Micah, I want to ask, what kind of impact, I mean, obviously you you've already kind of seen it once before with the Black Stories Matter performance, but what kind of impact do you hope the Reclaiming Our Time program has on people? What do you think people can learn from this performance?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I guess we can only guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a few things come to mind, though, that even came about that weekend, when we were all here and we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is just, there's the fallacy that I think a lot of people carry that, like, slavery didn't really happen in the North. The North were the good guys.
Right.
And, it didn't happen here, and part of it is, I think, we just need to dispel that. Because again, whether it's the North or South or just as a country, we haven't dealt with it.
Right.
Like our process of dealing with it has been like, oh, well, it happened. And let's move on.
Sure.
But the reality is that, like, it doesn't, that system that was in place has carried over. It's something that we haven't really honestly dealt with and owned up to and thought about. We haven't had the deep discussions about it as a nation. And in fact, most often, even if those discussions seem to begin to bubble up, somebody is quick to be like, well, no, like, that was then. But, we know, like, I mean, history's not that. It's never that far.
Right.
And the effects of it they're real today. Right? Like, they're real in our lives, in our everyday lives. Like, those effects are real. Like, we are not some nation of great equality and equal opportunity for everybody. We're not, and we're sadly far from it. And the wealth gap between the average white American family and average African American family is huge. That's still there, and
right.
And so what I hope really is that this performance simply allows people to engage in that conversation more, allows people to realize, to really make that real connection, right? Because we're going to be performing in the church right across the street, and then to be in the church, hear the stories, and realize that the place that we slept at was just a few feet away.
Exactly.
That this was here. This was this place, and how is this place, this land, and these people then and now transformed by this? Let's have those conversations. Let's talk about that, because some kind of retribution needs to be had. Because otherwise, I think we're stuck in it. I think we're trapped by what we're trying to push away. And I understand accepting it could be painful, it could be hard, and accepting it raises all kinds of questions. But I think we're far better off having that conversation than acting like it's done and over with.
Right, exactly. When clearly, people are struggling, people are suffering, and it's not really something we can just ignore.
Right.
Great. Well, it's so true, and I know we also hope that people will learn a lot from this. Thank you again so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Registration is still open for this Saturday's performance, which will be taking place at 7:30 p.m. at the Reformed Church of New Paltz at 92 Huguenot Street. Tickets are only $10, and they will be available at the door, but pre-registration is strongly encouraged. You can register for the event at huguenotstreet.org/TMI. And 50 free tickets are available to SUNY New Paltz students, which you can claim at the Welcome Center front desk at the Haggerty Administration Building. First come, first served. Reclaiming Our Time is sponsored by SUNY New Paltz, the Dubois Family Association, the Reformed Church of New Paltz, and a Humanities New York Action Grant. Additionally, if you'd like to learn more about TMI Project, visit tmiproject.org. And to learn more about the Slave Dwelling Project, visit slavedwellingproject.org. We're wrapping up now, but listeners can tune in every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. for the rest of the semester at WFNP.org or 88.7 FM to hear more from historic Huguenot Street. Visit huguenotstreet.org for information on all of our upcoming events, and follow us on social media to stay informed on what's happening on the street. And if you want to catch any of our past radio shows, they are available on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.